We have a long way to go, but I still believe in our system of justice, and in the end, justice will prevail. She doesn't get the final say in this. She knows she's not going to be able to prove all of these charges beyond a reasonable doubt. This is George Zimmerman and the Duke LaCrosse case all over again. A politically active district attorney or state's attorney. You could tell the emotion in her voice. She almost did this with glee. And that's why I believe, like they do, when I say they, the officers union and the attorney that we just heard from, she needs to remove herself from this case. I hope the state's attorney general gets involved in this and sees the error of her ways. The smart thing for her to do is to recuse herself and name a special prosecutor.
But Sheriff,
I'm appalled.
I'm sorry, sir, but I just want to be clear. What if she is basing this as well, even though she said she was doing a concurrent report, this police report was nothing new, no change, but she's basing it as well on information and police report that outlined all the charges she outlined today, and that was enough for her to go on to make and to file these charges. What do you say?
Well, first of all, the criminal complaint is not evidence, okay? That's just what she's claiming. This is what we think we can prove, and that's okay. But, you know, skilled prosecutors who are unemotionally involved.
This is what police provided me. This is what I'm going on. Now, she also said, like you said, that she was going on a separate report that her own office was working on. But is she going to use that police report against the very police she's indicting now?
Well, I'm sure that the officers will be represented well with defense counsel, and there'll be expert witnesses coming to testify. Like I said, just because a death is ruled a homicide, that's just a manner of death, as opposed to, say, an accidental death, a suicide, or natural causes. Just because it's been ruled a homicide does not mean that somebody is criminally liable. There may be and probably are some civil torts here, but with what little I know, and I don't know all the facts, but I'm listening to the emotion in her voice and listening to those political statements that she made at the end of that news conference. That's political activism. It's wrong. It's probably in violation of her code of ethics as a lawyer. And again, I'm going to take my time with this, but I'm not going to sit idly by. And I want to call out to every law enforcement officer in the country to pay attention to this, because I see a pattern, at least demands from an angry mob, that we be offered up as human sacrifices. We don't do that in our system of justice in the United States just to please an angry mob. And I sense, from what I heard her say, Neil, that that's what's going on here.
Do you think there's so much we don't know. We don't know what happened in that van and what really went down with Freddie Gray, that he could have done any of this to himself. You hear all these medical experts and the like that they've talked to say that it would be next to impossible, that the police had to have done something, maybe not deliberately, maybe that was the original intent, but that he could not have done this to himself. That is their argument. What do you think of that?
Well, that's the confusion here, and I don't want to make medical determinations. I want to let forensics investigators and medical examiners and pathologists do that. However, yes, something did happen that caused the death of Freddie Gray, but it doesn't mean that somebody's criminally liable. And just because we have this gap in between from the time that he was put in that van and the time that he died, which was not in that van or not even soon after, doesn't mean the cops did something. She mentioned in her news conference something about the cops stopped several times along the way and didn't give him medical assistance. That's not criminal. That's the civil tort that I'm talking about. There are some things that I find in this case, what little I know, that are problematic from a procedural standpoint. But, Neil, it doesn't make it criminal. These cops are political prisoners. I'm calling them political prisoners because this state's attorney stood up there and made a political statement at the end talking about she hears the voices and no justice and no peace. Those are chants from this angry mob that's not looking for justice. When I heard the cheers at the end of her announcement, I was sickened by that. I was sickened, Neil, because there are no winners in this. Even if she would have announced that no charges would be issued, like what happened in Ferguson in New York, the cops weren't on his sides applauding that decision. There are no winners in this, but that's why I said this is nothing more than emotion on her part. She's emotionally connected. She knows that. She should remove herself and get somebody who, like our Lady Justice, the symbol holding the two scales with the blindfold on, she took her blindfold off, and now she's doing this with raw emotion. This is not consistent with the rule of law. It's not consistent with our system of